forgot. I also have to throw.
That's fine. I just need some liquid, that's all.
to see in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. And change will come to you. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. And change will come to you. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And change will come to you. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. Be the voice you want to hear in the world. And change will come to you. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. Be the light you want to shine in the world. And change will come to you. And change will come to you. And change will come to you.
Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Society. My name is Kelly Crocker and I'm one of the ministers here. Today I'm joined by my colleague, the Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson, and the worship team of Heather Thorpe, Linda Warren, Drew Collins, Daniel Carnes, and a very special thanks to Emmett Tom for being with us this morning. Thank you, Emmett. I know, it's so cool when the grown-up kids come back. The vision of First Unitarian Society is growing souls, connecting with one another, and embodying our Unitarian Universalist values in our lives, our community, and our world. If you are visiting us today, welcome. We are so very glad that you are with us. If you'd like more information about our activities and programs, please stop by the welcome table, which is located out in the Commons, right next to the elevator. We hope that you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour that is also in the Commons immediately after service. And for those of you connecting with us virtually today, we're glad that you are with us as well. We hope that you'll be able to take a moment after service and watch the announcement slides and find out more about those upcoming programs and activities.
We are in the midst of our annual stewardship campaign here at FUS, and today's service includes a special ritual to bless the pledges of financial support made to our congregation in the year ahead. Shortly before our children depart for their classes, you'll all be invited to come forward to the vessels here in front in order to deposit your pledge cards there. Now, some of you brought pledge forms that you've already completed with you this morning, and we'll be so grateful to receive them. There are also forms available, they look like this, at the entrances. The ushers have more of them. If you know exactly what pledge you want to make, but you didn't bring your form and you're prepared to make that commitment now, well, you could fill one of these out. If you already sent in your pledge, or you're just not ready to make a commitment today, or you're brand new and have no idea what I'm talking about, I hope that you will still come forward when called. Kelly and I would like to present everyone with a little gift here from the congregation in affirmation and appreciation of your gifts. So please, I hope you will come forward. Do not feel like this doesn't apply to you, because it does.
I think you covered it. But finally, for another notice for everyone, but especially for our children and young people, we spoke a couple weeks ago about how a pledge is a promise, and promises that we make to each other, and how here in this community we make all kinds of promises for how we will care for the congregation. And you may remember when we were all gathered together up front here, we talked about those promises like coming to our classes, participating in our classes, picking up if we're using the toys in the library. There was lots of talk about no running in the halls, no running in the classrooms, if you remember that. So on the back of those pledge cards, it's completely blank. If you would rather draw about your promise, or you can write your promise, whatever you'd like to do, do it on the whole big blank side, and we'll be collecting these in a little bit, so you've got some time to think about it. And now, I invite you to join us in a moment of silence as we center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time, joining together once again in community. From the loneliness of troubled times we come,
to discover that we are not alone,
into the dwelling place of togetherness we come,
to collect remnants of hope,
from fear that all is lost we come,
to discover what will save us,
into the comfort of each other's arms we come,
to feel the strength that has not yet vanished,
from darkness we come,
to wait until our eyes begin to see,
into the refuge of fading dreams we come,
to remove illusions and focus new visions,
from despair that walks alone we come,
to travel together,
into the dwelling place of generations we come,
to pledge allegiance to being peace and doing justice.
And we invite you now to rise in all the ways we do, joining together in the words of affirmation as we light our chalice. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us.
Please join me in singing hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wander at this love that
seated. Our congregation is based in a reverence for the truth, bound together by the principle of free thought and the pursuit of a life of integrity. Much has changed in the 144 years we have been here, but this much has not. For decades before any of us were born, people who never knew us and never will gave the work of their hands and the coins in their pockets to build this spiritual community and to pass it on to us. Today, we renew our responsibility to be its stewards for one more year. Let all of our giving come from our gratitude and our hope. As the music plays, we invite you to come forward and return your card to the congregation. You can come up the center aisle if that works, and then head back down the sides. And please come on up and see us so that we can thank you for your needed and very valued gifts.
Take some seats in those packets. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Thank you, Gail. Thank you so much for doing it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Campbell. Thank you. Oh, you got it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eliza. Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ross. You get seats. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Hi. Good morning. Thank you so much. Money is made out of work. It is made possible by more work from parents and teachers and partners and friends and strangers. Now this money is pledged to make possible the work of this congregation. May this house be blessed in the receiving of it, and may the hands and the minds and the people who made it possible by making it be blessed in the giving. Amen.
With joy and bring it forth with peace. The mountains
the classes.
Oh,
Thank
my
you
fault.
all so much. And I invite you now into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which sustains and strengthens our community here, and also the work of our outreach offering recipient, who this week is the UW Odyssey Project, an award-winning UW-Madison project that takes a whole family approach to breaking the cycle of generational poverty through access to education. It has empowered more than 500 low-income adults to find their voices and get a jump start at earning college degrees they never thought possible. Using a 6-credit English literature course, faculty members introduce adults to great works of literature, philosophy, history, and art, and help them improve skills in writing and critical thinking. Some graduates of the program have journeyed from homelessness to UW-Madison degrees, from incarceration to meaningful work in the community. There are multiple ways to share your gifts this morning. There's baskets now being passed here in the room. Thank you, Gail and Lois. And you'll see on the screen you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org, and you'll see the text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and for your faith in this life we create together.
My life flows on in endless song above this lamentation. I hear the real, the far of Him that hails our new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It finds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it. And day by day the pathway smooths, since first I learned to love it. The peace of love makes fresh my heart, a fountain ever springing. Since love prevails on heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? What though my joys and comfort dies? I hear the truth it liveth. What though the darkness gather round? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths, since first I learned to love it. The peace of love makes fresh my heart, a fountain ever spring. Since love prevails on heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? Since love prevails on heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing?
Thank you so much. Well, here's something you should know about me, if you don't already. I like French fries. I like French fries a lot. If I'm really honest, in fact, I like them too much. They have very little nutritional value and contain a number of things that are not particularly good for my health. But they just taste so good. As many of you know, I am vegan, which means that I don't eat meat or dairy or other animal products, and that does narrow down the range of foods that I do eat, which are not good for my health, but I make up for all of that with French fries. I tell you all of this to establish my expertise at the outset. I am ready to lay my level of experience in eating French fries against that of anyone else in this room. So if you also like French fries, even a tenth as much as I do, then you've probably, at one point or another, experienced the fry tax. The fry tax, for those of you who do not know or are less carb inclined, it generally happens when you order fries with someone who does not. While you're in the process of eating, I like to save my fries for the end because I like them so much, someone else, or maybe multiple someone else's, sneak a few fries off of your plate and wolf them down. Now, as much as I might bristle sometimes at those golden, delicious slivers of fried potato disappearing from my plate, hey, if you wanted fries so badly, why didn't you order your own? I am here to tell you that I actually think it's a good thing. In fact, it has something to do with the theme of stewardship, which of course is our topic today. How and why we share what we have together in order to support the spiritual community to which we belong. Now, in the society in which we live, taxes are not widely held to be positive things. It has seemingly ever been so. In his excellent book, Debt, the First 5,000 Years, David Graeber sketches out a historical pattern which played out in the earliest human city-states that we have records from and crept up again and again and again at different places and times all over the world. A centralized political authority, a state, maintains, defends, and expands itself through force by fielding armies of increasing size and complexity. This is where taxation comes in, The powerful maintain and protect their power through military force, and they supply and equip that force with resources that they extract from the population at large. Currency, money, which is something that most but not all societies have, emerges in this model of economic history as a means of making taxation more efficient. Rather than demanding so much grain from every farmer or so many boots from every cobbler each year, a government demands a certain number of coins instead and uses those coins to keep the soldiers in the field. But 1700 or so years ago, there comes a fascinating twist in this narrative. About the same time that the Roman Empire was beginning to falter and fade, Christianity began to really take off in Europe. Weaker, smaller countries couldn't support the same huge armies and major infrastructure that Rome had. And so a lot of things changed in the way that people lived and the lives that they chose or had no choice but to choose. One of these changes was that they began to find alternatives for all of those Roman coins that had been in circulation. With no one minting them anymore, it made sense to look for other options. And the stuff they were most commonly used for paying taxes to the government and for the government to pay wages to soldiers and other employees, wasn't as necessary. All that gold and silver was still worth something, of course, but better to trade it to someone else for a horse or a piece of land or a contract for some of their wheat crop next fall, rather than have to sit on and protect something that was inconvenient, attractive to thieves, and not actually something you could eat or make direct use out of. A lot of those disused coins ended up being traded to abbeys and churches, the centers of the rising Christianity, where they were generally melted down and made into crosses and statues and other adornments for the grand shrines and cathedrals that were then being built. Precious metal that had been a liquid means of commerce became instead a solid symbol of eternity. Similar trends took place in India during the rise of major Hindu and Buddhist temples there, and in China as Buddhism became established there as well. All of this posed a challenge to ambitious kings and queens who wanted to field the large armies and build the sorts of empires that required the minting of coins. So these monarchs would, again and again, find some pretense to seize holy sites, to take possession of gold crosses or silver menorahs and melt them down, reconverting them into hard currency so that the cycle of taxation and militarism could be expanded and renewed. Money can be many things. It can be a symbol, it can be an obsession, it can be a tool for corruption and oppression, but it is also a store of value. It measures, very imperfectly, somebody's work or something that someone wanted that someone else had. In the world that we inhabit, it is inescapable. So, because we cannot get rid of it, at least for now, it is up to us whether we will use it to build empires or cathedrals, whether we will use that stored value in the service of consumption or of community. So, okay, back to the fry tax for a second. Obviously, the word tax is not doing any favors in this metaphor. The associations with coercive power and militarism are unsavory, to say nothing of the particular distaste for taxes harbored in the American psyche. Consider how much of the justification for the War of Independence rested on Great Britain's tax policy towards its North American colonies, in the popular understanding of the story, at least. So here is the unfavorable characterization following those terms. You order your food, and it arrives as requested. Each person at the table has their own. But then, without warning or permission, a hand reaches out and claims some of yours as though it were theirs. Your joy is now diminished, and theirs increased at your expense. Clearly, your only two options are to flip the table and grind the whole meal to a halt, or to suffer the indignity in silence. So that is one interpretation. And if we are simply autonomous individuals having no particular relationship to each other beyond the ways in which we might find another person to be temporarily useful to us or a threat to whatsoever we may have, then it is the correct interpretation. But hopefully you realize already that it is not the interpretation I favor. Because the fry tax doesn't have to be read as a tax at all. No one is forcing you to pay it. Fines will not compound if you refuse to participate. The theoretical threat of jail is not in the equation here. It is sadly all too common in our world to confuse the things we owe to each other with things being taken from us. Now, in the opposite direction, there's an old folk tale about a certain child who went to the outermost limits of generosity imaginable. Once upon a time, there was a young girl who was very poor. She was an orphan. Both of her parents had died, and she had nothing in the world except for what she wore and carried on her person. Her dress and the slip beneath it, a light coat, a pair of shoes, and a bit of bread that someone had been kind enough to give to her. Making her way through the wide world, she met many different people, and no matter how little she had, she found that there were always others who had less. She saw an old man by the side of the road, hungry and begging for food. Her stomach was not so empty as his, so she gave the man her bread. She saw a small boy coming the opposite way from her, walking barefoot down the road. And as he was about to pass her by, she stopped him and gave him her shoes to wear. She caught sight of a woman in a field up ahead who was shivering in the chill, so she stopped and gave her the coat off her back. Night fell, and in the twilight she almost walked into another little girl whose clothes were nothing but rags and tatters. Reasoning that it was growing dark and that with only the light of the stars overhead there was no cause to be worried that someone might see her, she gave the other girl her dress. And it was only after all of this, when she had given everything that she had away and stood alone in her slip under the night sky, that the stars of heaven began to fall to the earth. One of them fell as a fine dress, another as a good, warm coat, two more as a pair of excellent shoes, and all the rest fell as coins, so that when the young girl picked them all up, she had money enough to make her rich and to last her the rest of her days. Now, this story is not without its own concerning qualities. How broken must a society be that its primary source of charity is apparently the largesse of orphaned children? Where is the line between giving what you can and giving more than you should? Why is it that so often in stories, the characters who are exemplifying generosity, even to the point of endangering or impoverishing themselves, are women or children, or most especially girls, when in the actual world that the story takes place in, the people most in need of learning generosity are not people with those identifications. Yet, even once interrogated with those necessary questions, the core of the story remains. The belief that whatever we give to others is simply a loss to us is a narrow and short-sighted one. So let me tell you the Fry story now in a different way. You are sharing a meal with others. It is a practice so ancient that it has served as the basis for countless religious rituals from innumerable faiths, and yet it predates every single one of them. The food before you is pleasing to the senses, so much so that it is attractive not only to you, but to others around you as well. And so, one of them, a child or a sibling or a partner or a friend, someone you love, reaches out and eats a bit of the food from your plate. No words are exchanged because both of you know and trust each other. You trust them not to take too much. They trust you that you want to share with them. What's more, you each trust that there is enough to allow for this symbol of relationship, this act of connection to pass between you. Every life depends on every other life. We each depend more on some and less on others, but the fullness of our flourishing requires the full flourishing of each and all. And the health and even the survival of our world depends on each of us recognizing that. In this way, our particular community is just a microcosm of the greater whole. And the seemingly frivolous matter of whether or not a few of our French fries get shared with the other folks at the table when they arrive becomes just a preamble to the larger question of how we are to inhabit this earth together. Whether our ethic is one which says that everything that goes to you from off of my plate is a simple and straightforward loss for me, or whether this is a world in which we all can trust each other enough to share.
Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars pour their healing light on you. Peace of God, light of the world to you. Light of the world to you. Amen,
In the season of our stewardship campaign, it is our practice to invite members of the congregation to share a bit with you about why they support and sustain this community financially. So here to do just that is John Carlson.
Upstairs. Good morning. So as Kelly mentioned, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what FUS means to me and why my wife and I have been pledging members for the past 21 years. In order to do that, I need to tell you a little bit about my childhood and the influence of my parents, specifically about religion and about race and gender. So when I was growing up, like I mentioned, I had a very boring childhood. I had parents, I had an older brother, an older sister, and I played in the street with my friends and did all the fun and dangerous things that boys do when they're left to their own devices. And we went to church every Sunday. Until one day, I woke up, got dressed, trudged downstairs like any kid that has to go to a church class this early in the morning. And I found out I wasn't going to Sunday school that day. In fact, I was never going back, which for a 6-year-old is like a snow day, right? But as it turns out, and I found out this later, that it was my mother's idea because she was tired of being treated like a second-class citizen in her church because of her gender. It's had a big influence on me growing up. Also, my father, who I would describe as agnostic about religion, his first job was in Beloit at a job office. He was, well, back then, I didn't have the internet. So you'd go into a job office and you had the cards on the bulletin board, right? You'd pull off a card and you'd talk to somebody about getting that job, and that person was my dad. The thing about the 60s was, if you were a woman or you were brown or black and you picked a job that he knew you wouldn't get, all he could do to help you was to redirect you to a job that he thought you could get. And we all know what that means. If you're a woman, it was a secretary. If you were brown or black, it was probably something janitorial or something like that. And those are memories that haunted him his entire life. Not just the fact that he had to do it, but when he saw on the person's face when they realized what was happening. And they realized that even the state couldn't help them get a job. So by today's standards, that's not very progressive, but for the early 70s, that was a lot. And had a big impact on my upbringing. So, fast forward, I hate to say this, but 25 years. And my wife and I were dating and looking to get married, and we're looking at a place to get married, and we happened to be at a wedding, of all time, September 15th, 2001, in a Unitarian church in Wausau. And my wife pointed me to the back of the room where there was a card that had the principles of Unitarios. Sorry, I have to read them. I don't have them all memorized. The first being the inherent worth and dignity of a person, and the second being justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the interesting thing about this wedding was the groom was from Pakistan. This being September 15th, 2001, the cool thing about the service was not only was he welcome, but his heritage was celebrated in that service as well, openly in the church, which was amazing. So deciding that Unitarianism seemed pretty cool and suspiciously too good to be true, we ended up coming here in, I think, October or November of 2001. And if you've been here a while, if you remember Marianne Macklin, she gave a service on solitude, and she quoted Henry David Thoreau, and I was hooked. I absolutely love it because I found out here's a place I could find my own spiritual path. I didn't have to be told what to believe or told what to do, which is very consistent with what my parents taught me. And why I pledge and why I volunteer? Again, I really appreciate the ability to find my own spiritual path here. Not that I found it. I don't think I'll ever find it, but that's okay. I actually enjoy the journey there. I pledge for the building. I remember before this was built, when all we had was a landmark auditorium, and the Saturday services, which I typically attend, were downstairs in a small room where we were all packed in like sardines. But the important thing, too, is that my pledge supports, obviously, the Kellys and the rest of the staff here. Gives them a living wage and benefits and all the things that people need to have in their lives, and everybody should have in their lives. But also, it's the community we share that matters to me as well. As much as people talk about love, they talk about freedom, I think it actually exists here in its true form, where love isn't something they say is unconditional and then place conditions upon. And it's a welcoming community where people can be their authentic selves as well. It matters to me as a person, and it matters to me as a parent that my children can learn who they are spiritually and how they identify as well. I have 2 children. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. My oldest is 17 and has gone through coming of age. It's actually his first service here. He was 2 weeks old, and you could hear him cooing in the background. My youngest, Lauren, is non-binary. I have no inhibition of saying that here. It's another great thing that I love, that they can come here and be welcome and be supported and celebrated for that. And I don't have a really good closing line, I'm sorry, but thank you.
Thank you, John. It's nice to have you with us on a Sunday morning. They are a Saturday family, so. And he needs more coffee. Each week, we gather together and we bring with us all that lives in our hearts. We carry our own pain and celebration and that of the ones we love. We share all of it here, knowing it is held in support and in love. Today we light a candle for John Webster, who is home after a recent hospitalization. And we send our love and care to John and to Nancy as they navigate ongoing health challenges and struggles. And we light a candle of memory and grief for the much too brief but beautiful life of Jonah Hauser Carlson. Jonah would have turned 14 tomorrow. And we send our love to John and Kelly, Evan and Lauren as they remember Jonah. And we light a candle in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and in love with the people of Syria and Turkey. We hold in our hearts all the areas of our precious world mired in struggle and heartbreak, the places we know and the places unknown to us. We yearn for peace, safety, freedom, and joy for all people everywhere on this shared globe. And if you'll join us in a moment of meditation with these words from Vanessa Rush Southern and Allison Jacks. Spirit of love and giver of hope, we know life is complicated, uncertain, and also gorgeous with some things we can count on. It has seasons of struggle and seasons of delight, and sometimes the two blow in and bloom simultaneously, like now, maybe always. And we are here together, breathing together, searching together, holding each other through it all, laughing and singing in the face of it. If there is a journey to liberation, if there is a way to live resurrection, I think it is like this. May what holds us captive in loss or hurt or sadness or literal heartbreaking limits be released. And what gives us life, hope, joy, rebirth, feel invited to claim us, and may we claim it. Sinking our roots down into what grounds us and reaching toward the sun. Flowering into this season, all of whose traditions witness to life more abundant claiming us. After a season of loss and winter struggles of heart and mind and spirit. May we open our hearts to the abundance of creation that surrounds and sustains us. Blessed be, and amen.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
May each of us have enough trust in life that our fears will burn away. May each of us have enough hope in the future that we will let go of despair and work to leave a better world for our children. May each of us have enough love for one another that we will abandon hatred and never fail to notice the great miracle that is the human spirit. May each of us have enough courage to face the challenges of our troubled world so that we may act with trust, hope, and love in the face of fear, despair, and hatred. Blessed be. Go in peace. And please be seated for the postlude.
When I lift my voice, let it be in song, a defiant note in the face of wrong. I won't stand alone, we'll stand side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified. When I lift my voice, let it be in song, a defiant note in the face of wrong. I won't stand alone, we'll stand side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. When I lift my voice, let it be for good. Let me care as much as I know I should. I won't stand alone, we'll stand side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified.